Welcome to Seven Figure Chiro, the podcast where we cut through the noise and give you the unfiltered truth about building a practice that grows beyond you.
We're your hosts, Dr. Jeff
and Kristin Berard.
Twice a month, we're diving into real strategies, proven systems, and success stories that help chiropractors and clinic owners scale into multidisciplinary powerhouses without losing their sanity or their margins.
Whether you're just starting out as an associate or leading a thriving practice,
we'll show you how to turn vision into execution,
execution into profit,
and profit into freedom.
Let's get to work, because your seven-figure practice isn't built on theory.
It's built on action. Welcome back to Seven Figure Chiro. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Berard, along here with Kristin.
Hello.
In today's episode, we're going to discuss the real cost of staying small. So what's that mean, Kristin? The real cost of staying small?
So those who are just staying as a single service type of clinic, as opposed to moving into something that's more multidisciplinary and offers multiple services for your patients.
So this is something that we see with a lot of chiropractors around the nation who have this large ambition to have a business that they envision, but they have a hard time breaking out of that small mentality. And typically, what most chiropractors do is the way they grow their business instead of scale their business is they just keep adding providers, right? Their revenue might increase, but so does everything else, their costs, and their profit margins don't improve. And it really turns into the question, is the juice worth the squeeze? So there's some things to discuss on when you look at businesses out there. I like to use the restaurant industry as an example. Restaurateurs, restaurant owners, they're in a business 7 days a week, 12 hours a day sometimes. And yeah, a restaurant might make, $2-3 million a year, but their profit margins are like, 5 to 7%. And you got to ask yourself, okay, you got this hopping business, you got these people coming and going, you got all this staff, and would you agree that's the commonality behind the cost of being small?
Yeah, most definitely.
So these are some things to think about that are going to lead into some other episodes is thinking about, every chiropractor. Obviously, you have to start somewhere, and a starting point is adding other providers. But, when you scale vertically, it's just more work and not necessarily more profit margin. And that's the cost of staying small is your profit margin typically doesn't increase as you scale vertically with keeping a single service. And when I say single service, yeah, we're just talking about chiropractic. And massage therapy is the same thing. If you're like, well, I have massage therapy. Well, to grow your massage therapy, all you can do is put another layer of massage therapists, and it's the same thing, right? You're just scaling vertically, and your profit margin really is not improving. So again, the cost of staying small is you work harder for really no reward.
And you're going after the same people.
You're going after the same market, and you can only squeeze so much from the same market. So, the cost of staying small, and I'm not saying if some people are happy with staying small and they're happy with a certain profit margin and they're happy with whatever their take-home pay is, and they don't have any ambition or want or need to grow their financial future, then there's nothing wrong with staying small. But those that, especially young chiropractors, those that want to get out of debt quicker, those that want to have a little financial freedom, those that want to have the liberty to work on their practice instead of in their practice, the small mentality is going to prevent you from reaching those things. And you're going to need to think on how to scale your business instead of grow your business. And there's a difference. And that's something we're going to talk about in a future episode.
So let's talk about, let's say you have 100 people. Okay. So you have 100 patients that you have to go after. And you as a provider can only do so much with those 100 people. So if you bring in another chiropractor, you're not really bringing in more services for that person. So you really need to kind of duplicate that, right? You would need 200 people coming in now because you have 2 chiropractors, 200 people. So if you bring in a different service, you have the opportunity to bring in even more people or do multiple services with those same 100 people based on what their need is. And so you have a lot more opportunity rather than if you're staying small and you're just offering them one service, that's great. And you can really hone in and specialize in something. But if you have more opportunities for those patients to get different types of treatments based on what their needs are, they don't have to leave your building. And so there is kind of a cost with staying small as well, I would say.
And I think one of the biggest costs of staying small is the peaks and valleys of your business. You know, there's chiropractors out there that they have some really killer months and then other months are just atrocious. And I would say that's the biggest cost of staying small is this fluctuation in your revenue over the course of the year is really stressful. Many times it means, you know, you got to let people go and then you're rehiring people during your busy season. So the cost of staying small definitely has a lot of volatility to the revenue cycle. And that's one of the biggest reasons why people don't grow, because they're uncertain what future months have in store for them. So they don't spend money to scale. They don't want to innovate because they're concerned about, you know, historically their revenue fluctuating so much from month to month. I mean, how many chiropractors out there struggle in January, in February, when new deductibles are reinstated and everyone puts on the e-brake? Well, there's a way to break through that and there's a way to prevent that. And that's scaling your practice instead of just growing it vertically with adding providers like yourself. You know, some people say, well, we have so many patients, we just need chiros. Okay, fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't go hire another chiropractor, but to really increase your business beyond the vertical aspect, you know, let's think outside the box and what else can we do so that those peaks and valleys don't fluctuate and you have a steady, progressive gradient upward that gives you that freedom that we all want and we all envisioned when we started this career.
Yeah, you always use this analogy, let's not rob Peter to pay Paul, right? And so when you're small, maybe you need some help and you're bringing somebody else in, you have that difficulty of, well, what happens if that person is slow and what am I going to do, right? And so I love that analogy of let's not rob Peter to pay Paul, because when you're small, let's think about how are you going to grow, as opposed to if you're bringing in other services to kind of help the patients out, you have the opportunity to offer them different things and bring in different people into the clinic. Whereas if you stay a small kind of clinic, maybe go with hiring somebody else to work with you in the same profession, it can become very difficult and sometimes kind of competitive within your own office, which that's not something that you want to bring into your office either.
I mean, if you look at every business, I don't care what it is, you know, a hardware store, shoe store, you know, imagine a gas station. You pull up and all you get is gas. Those gas stations wouldn't survive. This is why when you go in there, there's all kinds of stuff in there to attract multiple different people in there coming in for different things. And this is what sustains the business. You don't see a store that just sells nails and nothing else, right? They have all these other things in there to accommodate multiple people. So there's no difference in the medical community. You go to any really thriving medical practice or chiropractic practice for that matter, they have multiple services to attract multiple demographics so that they don't have those fluctuations in revenue over the course of the year. So hopefully this gives you a little mindset of, oh geez, yeah, what else can I really provide and add to my practice to bring people in here that otherwise wouldn't come in. Some people aren't into just manipulation. Some people want some other services. They want to see you grow and they want to see you scale and they want to see the center that's convenient for them to get multiple things done at once. So just food for thought, and start to think on how can we scale this business and produce profit without increasing cost.
Yeah. 100%. And there's always ways around everything. You don't need a ton of extra space. If you're thinking about adding like another chiropractor and you had the space to add another chiropractor, chances are that means you have enough space to add a different type of service. That's also important to think about when when thinking about growing and scaling, which we're actually going to talk about on the next episode. We're really going to focus in on how to think about growing and how to scale and what the difference between the two is. But using us as an example, we didn't build out anything new when we decided to scale a little bit within our existing business. When we started in our Midland clinic, we started just offering personal training that was more tailored to what the patients needed from a medical side of things. We didn't think about adding another chiropractor. We thought about adding another service that people needed. And it really kind of brought in some more people that maybe wouldn't have stuck around for a really long time, or offered some more services that brought in new people.
You know what I think the biggest problem is, though? It's unfortunate, but it's true, is when most chiropractors start their clinic, they're thinking really small as far as, yeah, they want these dreams and they want to grow, but they're afraid to take that leap. And I know we always say, it's better to grow out of something than into something. But with that being said, if you go build an office and, I just want a nice, small, tight office that's super nice, but efficient and, not overwhelming. And these chiros go out and they'll get this office and they're just crammed in there. They can't fit a needle in there besides what's already in there. And yeah, you're kind of stymied. There's not much you can do with that. So, I really try to encourage chiropractors to not get this humongous space, but have room to grow. You can have maybe fewer treatment areas in your office, but maybe they're large with the forecast of you growing and maybe putting in more rooms, maybe that are a little smaller, or, you have to have room to spread your wings or you can't grow. We run into a lot of clients that are interested in incorporating Stretch Center and they have zero space. Well, if you don't have space, you can't grow. You can't scale your business. You can't add to it. So what's the only solution? Think outside the box. How can I have more space? How can I spread my wings? Because if you have the space, you're mentally incentivized to, what else can I put in here? What else can I offer to the community? But man, so many of these chiropractors have such limited space. They can't even think how we're trying to encourage them to think because they don't have room, right?
Well, and I think that they don't think long term when they make some of these decisions, right? So if you know that you want something bigger in life rather than just this more basic one service, one man show kind of thing, maybe signing a 5-year lease is probably not a good idea if you have aspirations to grow or to scale. So thinking about those things, you always want to think ahead and think about what options you will have down the road rather than putting yourself in a box and you're stuck in that box for quite a long time. Thinking long term, but also knowing that you can also grow out of things without it hurting you and it not stopping you from doing the things that you want to do.
Yeah, so what we did when we moved from Florida to Michigan, we were fortunate enough to be able to build a building, and we built a 6,000 square foot building, but we only built out half of that building. So we were occupying roughly 3,000 square feet. And once we reached our capacity in those 3,000 square feet, then we made the decision to build out the other 3,000 square feet and scale into physical therapy, personal training, and the Stretch Center. Without that space, we wouldn't be able to do that. But we had a plan on how to scale our business before we started the business. So I hope this resonates with some people that want to really grow and scale. You have to think about that. And I know it sounds like a nightmare of moving locations or getting a bigger location. But let me tell you, when you have the space, your brain starts to work on how you're going to fill that space and monetize the space. When you don't have that space, it's really hard to innovate on what other things to bring. So hopefully that gives a little bit of ideas on those that want to grow that maybe just don't have the space. Well, if you don't have the space, you have two choices. Stay the way you are or find more space. It's that simple. I appreciate you joining us on the 7-Figure Chiro podcast. Please join us for our next episode where we're going to dive deeper into the difference between growth and scaling. So until next time, keep up the good fight.
Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us on 7-Figure Chiro.
We hope today's episode gave you clarity, direction, and at least one strategy you can put into play right now.
Remember, Building a 7-figure practice takes consistency, leadership, and execution.
But the reward is more freedom, more impact, and a business that truly serves you.
If you got value from today's conversation, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other chiropractors or clinic owners who are ready to grow.
And don't miss the next episode.
We'll keep breaking down what it takes to scale smart, lead strong,
And profit big.
Until then, keep pushing forward and building the practice and the life you've envisioned.